felt compelled to put some material up there for us because there's things going on that need to be understood and communicated and shared. My t-shirt says NASA. I don't know if you're seeing it backwards or forwards, ASAN, which is kind of ridiculous, but that's what I'm seeing here. And I tried to mess around with my settings so that you could see the actual, letters printed properly in the right direction. Spelling the, anyway, that's just a technical thing. I don't know how to fix it. Sorry. But anyway, so I made a list of things. It's been kind of a strange period. I don't know if you've noticed, we just had the full moon. And the sun is in Gemini and the moon was in Sagittarius. I saw very little broadcasting about it anywhere on my feeds, the information where I search. I was watching it carefully and, it had a sort of a lift moment. From my perspective, the lift was actually very beneficial for a fellow called Donald. It's his birthday very soon, and he has a very powerful Gemini Sagittarius axis. And I believe this full moon it's not a coincidence that he's defying gravity when it comes to perceptions from the left-wing observers. They are what I'm noticing is that left-wing observers, or you could mainstream media, whatever you want to call it, are kind of in a state of shock because they don't understand how to deal with the fact that this guy Donald is just getting stronger and stronger. For example, he just completed a one of his rallies in the Bronx, of all places. Okay, that's normally would be considered heavily left-wing, Marxist, communist, Democrat enclave. I'm being polite. But in its own way, I'm sure Bronx is beautiful. It's got a kind of a funny reputation. Each street by street is different. I have family over in New York, right there in Manhattan. And so, yeah, things do change street by street. But anyway, it's mostly, no offense here, it's mostly considered a poorer, more struggling Black and Hispanic type of neighborhood. I don't think that's really true, but that's the perception. And anyway, Donald is stuck in these ridiculous court cases. And so in the evening, the Bronx neighborhood people, governors, mayors, whatever, I guess, local activists invited him, please come and do a rally here in the Bronx, please. We would so much appreciate it. And of course, this enraged AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because that's her hood. And she doesn't give a about what's going on there. She's just like the others. She's there for graft. Just to line her pockets and mouth off. So anyway, the rally went extremely well for Donald. He's got a Gemini sun, Uranus in Gemini, North Node in Gemini, and it's his birthday in Gemini. And he's got a South Node in Sagittarius. And my feeling is that the full moon happened at pretty much exactly at the same time. I mean, the moon was in Sagittarius and the sun was in Gemini at the time of the rally. I mean, there you go. I think it's beautiful. Then again, I'm opinionated and biased, as you know. A few things I wanted to spit out here. On redacted, I've had real problems with hay fever, allergies, and so on. I just took some prescription stuff for here, and I'm hoping it works. So on the independent news source, Redacted, I've been watching 2 shows now. The first one was very disturbing. It's about how the United Nations and the NGOs and George Soros and all those people. There's a whole group of them, but we're talking billions of dollars here that are being funded into the invasion here in America from on our southern border. And so we could take it, in other words, it's all planned. Everything's planned, and it's all heavily coordinated with China and the Mexican cartels. And the idea, of course, is to destroy America from within without one shot being fired by the so-called enemies of America. Unrestricted, unconventional warfare. And it's actually working quite well, with all the thousands of people dying from fentanyl and all these bugs going around, and so on and so on. Hello, Love Triber. I'm not expecting anyone to be here. This is just spontaneous. Excuse me. But anyway, there was an update on Redacted, in particular regarding the immigration invasion. And I'm referring back to this character, J.J. Carell, who's in the process of filming a documentary about the invasion and to expose what's really going on. J.J. Carell used to be an ICE insider, and then he couldn't take it, so he quit, and now he's become independent. And what he's communicating is absolutely terrifying. It's much worse than anything you're seeing on mainstream media or even most of the alternative media that I watch. What he's indicating is that this so-called invasion is a very well organized form of alternative warfare, totally designed to strip America, destroy America from within. It's been planned for a long time, and now it's being activated. Billions of dollars funded through the United Nations, from there into the NGOs, from there directly to the cartels in China, and from there, whatever the NGOs ask for, the NGOs get. Carroll had a significant part of his research coming from a DHS deep insider who's responsible effectively for payroll, cutting checks to fund this shocking nightmare. And it makes me wonder, okay, if this guy is doing such a horrific thing, why is he still in the job doing that? Oh, somebody's got to do it. Okay, someone's going to do it. So this guy is doing it, but he's providing inside information to J.J. Carell. Anyway, the update from J.J. is that one of the biggest trouble spots is Chicago on the south side, which is basically the black neighborhood that's been deserted, abandoned, abused for decades. And that's being used as the bonfire that's going to be lit to start the war, the actual hot war in the United States. Literally a hot war. The idea is that there's tens of thousands of specifically Venezuelan fighting age guys being treated like VIP in Chicago through the NGOs and the local Chicago Democrat government. And it's working very, very well for the Venezuelans. Now, Southside Chicago has a sort of a bad reputation. But when J.J. Carroll was going there, talking around to some of the locals, the feeling is that there's a tremendous amount of hopelessness, bitterness, anger, resentment, and, pent-up rage that is like a tinderbox ready to explode. Then, in the last couple of years, especially in the last year, the last 9 months or so, with the huge influx of the Venezuelan illegals, basically a fighting force being set up in Chicago, funded by America and the United Nations. The setup is to use humiliation as the trigger to start the hot war. So in other words, here's the Venezuelan population over there just enjoying their newfound life. And then there's the local Chicago South Siders. And now you have to understand, there's a lot of bang bang sticks over there. A lot. There's a lot of AMMO. A lot of it. Some of it hijacked military grade stuff. It's very serious stuff. And it's ready to pop. It's ready to go hot. And this guy, J.J. Carroll, is trying to mention it. Please understand, people, that this is all set up. This is set up. The idea is to enrage the Chicago South Side community to the point where they pull the trigger. And that triggers the momentum to blame America for starting its own civil war, and chaos would ensue, obviously, of course. So, as always, it's trying to trigger and set up a war so that the perpetrators look innocent. Of course, the whole thing is really disgusting. This is just Chicago, but it's all the seeds are being set up and arranged all over the United States. Every major city, especially the sanctuary cities, are being set up for war. I found this very, very disturbing. Even the host, Clayton Morris, was very disturbed, obviously very disturbed by the latest report from J.J. Carroll. Anyway, the movie's coming. It's a documentary. It's called Treason. And as soon as it's ready, I'm going to be watching it because I want to see deep inside about what's going on. Something weird. Okay, I'm going on. There's something weird happened a couple of days ago when the Iranian president died in that helicopter crash. He's got a nickname as the Butcher of Tehran because he butchered anybody who felt like that. He just didn't like them, politically, economically, government, enemy, whatever. He just butchered anybody. And he comes in the same category as Bashar al-Assad over in Syria, Xi over in Mr. Ping's land, CCP, and Vladimir P. over in RUSSIA and all of that. All these thug murderers. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there. And they love their system. They love having totalitarian Marxist communist regimes where they have absolute power control. And they run everything like a criminal operation using violence, bribery, betrayal, blackmail, anything you can think of, murder, to get done what they want to do on their particular agenda. It's a very, very common business model, but America was founded in 1776 to stop that kind of nasty behavior. So when our fellow Uncle Joe, Grandpa Joe, sent messages of condolences to the Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, like, oh, I'm so sorry your president died. It's really bad. I'm so sorry. A lot of people in America went, what? What the bleep are you doing, Joe? What the hell are you thinking? What are you saying? You're an idiot. I'm just reporting on what happened. Okay. Next, you've probably heard about this. Klaus Schwab, the boss of the World Economic Forum, the thing that he founded in the late 70s, early 70s, he's resigning. I think he said 86. I don't know who's going to take over the position, but he's resigning. He's officially a complete crackpot, a complete nutcase. He likes to dress up looking like a movie star in a Star Wars movie. And he has this globalist like fantasy that he's going to take over the whole world and run it using the same business model as Mr. Ping uses in China. Okay? Oh, Love Driver is saying that the children of Klaus will replace Klaus. Well, that makes sense. Keep it in the family. That's the World Economic Forum. Keep it in the family. Now, remember, Even though the World Economic Forum is very, very high up on the pinnacle of power of elites, they're very, very, very high up. There's other people behind that. And I told you about that on another video. I believe I did. Anyway, I'll just mention it. There are people behind the World Economic Forum, and it's all about the money. And I believe it's all about the money and the global perpetual war machine, the global military industrial complex. We got to keep these wars going. It's money, money, it's business. War is the biggest business, man. Okay, this next article, I'm not going to talk about it because I'll probably get in trouble. But it's all about how the International Criminal Court, plus the United Nations, plus all the affiliated agencies of those people, they are all anti. Okay? And now the next thing, as you know, is the World Health Organization, which is very close to the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and the World Bank and all of those folks at the top of the pile of elites. They are pushing very, very aggressively for this global treaty. They're going to call it what's the polite word? There's another word for it. It begins with A. I talked about it recently. But anyway, it's getting very, very contentious here in America because it's been happening kind of below the radar for a long time. The WHO have been trying to push this thing for a long time so that the WHO can take over all the decision making for the world health issues. Thank you, Love Triber. Accord. So it's the World Health Organization Accord, where every country has to sign the accord and give up your sovereignty, your decision-making, your rights, your freedom of speech to the World Health Organization, where the decision-making process devolves down to one single individual at the top. Right now, it's Tedros. So the whole idea, again, it's another way to institutionalize global communism. So some people in America are waking up and saying, no, we don't want any of this. Sadly, there are places like England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Canada, and Australia, and possibly New Zealand that might be signing up for this. It's very, very frightening. Very, very frightening. Australia and Canada are already in very deep trouble with the infection by the global elites. It's very sad. It's actually frightening. So I hope the United States finds a way to do this to the WHO. This one really cheered me up. You know that guy, Love Tribe is also saying that Australia has already implemented their digital currency. Okay, that's a good point because that's basically the doorway to CBDCs. You know? Central bank digital currencies. All of this stuff is modeled on the Chinese system, which is already in operation in China with about, I think it's close to 250 or 300 million people. Not everybody in China is on it yet, but it's anybody who's got money or serious money and a smartphone, they're on it. And once they're on it, you can't escape. It's very, very, very dangerous. CBDCs, remember that word, CBDC. No. Okay? Anyway, you might have heard of this guy, Javier Milei. He is the new president of Argentina, and he is very much about free market capitalism, the Austrian School of Economics, the Mises Institute, where it's basically down to common sense and reality about how life actually works if you live with integrity and honesty and openness and freedom. It's the best of the best. If you've ever had a taste of it, which I have, then you won't accept anything else. Anything else is tyranny or it's imprisonment. So anyway, Javier Milei is kind of a controversial rock and roller, and he has stirred up a lot of excitement around the world for governors, societies, populations that are seeking freedom and seeking liberation from financial and political tyranny. Now, you know, Argentina basically lived under the Peronists for 40 years, and that completely destroyed the country. It turned into effectively a heavily socialized communist operation for the Peronist family. And they did the usual trick of just printing more and more and more and more and more money and filtering it all through the government. So like, oh, we get free housing, free education, free healthcare, free, all this, and we're going to save the people. And it's all a big scam, of course, like the Argentinians have just figured out. And so Javier Milei has a lot of support, but he also has enemies. However, he is not frightened. What he did, I think it was just yesterday, he got on stage at some rock concert in Argentina, and he got the band to play a certain exciting song that he uses as one of his marching songs. Now, as you know, we have Donald over here in America, and he plays a lot of songs and music when he does his rallies to get everybody pepped up and excited all about being America and having freedom. So Javier is doing something very similar down there in Argentina, and he has a particular song. I can't remember what it is, but the point is he gets up on stage and he likes to wear this leather jacket, and he's got crazy rock star 60s, 70s hair, and he's just totally rocking out, singing and jumping around. And the audience goes crazy. They love it. They love him. I think that's hilarious. The sound of freedom. Here's the next thing that this one really creeped me out. It's been going on for a long time, but they're really ramping it up and trying to put it all over the global headlines. The CCP, that's Mr. Ping and his gang, are activating massive war drills all around Taiwan. So right now, Taiwan is surrounded by these so-called war drills or army exercise, battle, Navy, Air Force exercise by China. The PLA, the People's Liberation Army, which is basically the private army of Mr. Ping. The CCP army is not there to protect and defend China. The CCP army is a weapon, a private, massive, multi-million person weapon for the use of Mr. Ping. It's mind-boggling. He's got a lot of guns, a lot of bullets, a lot of soldiers, a lot of planes, a lot of ships, whatever the satellites and robots and AI and everything like that. And he's just itching to use it because that's the only way that he can probably reclaim some of his very damaged ego right now, because the reality, the CCP is collapsing. It's imploding live, real time, financially, politically, economically, spiritually, if you want to call that, even though it's very dark. And the people of China know it, and they can see it, and they can smell it. It smells. You can really, really smell when things are falling apart. It's the rot. Neptune in Pisces, 29 degrees. Same thing with Saturn in Pisces at about 18 or 19 degrees right now. China is in deep, deep trouble. Okay? Anyway, it's a show of force, and the whole idea is to intimidate Taiwan with his war games. And Taiwan is sitting there. There's little Taiwan like that, and there's big China like that. And Taiwan is sitting there going, oh, yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. Come on, I dare you. Bring it on. Because Taiwan knows that there's massive military alliance pretty much at the flick of a button that will intervene. And my personal feeling is that no matter how monstrous the Chinese army and aggressive, there's a lot of weak points that are going to make it very, very hard for the CCP to succeed militarily in that situation. If it does turn into a major hot war, it's going to be very bloody, very dirty, and in the end, I believe the CCP will go down because they just do not. They've never been in the kind of war that we're used to, and we've been doing war for 130 years on a global scale. We were involved in World War I, World War II, and ever since World War II, we've been in a state of perpetual war. We know a lot about war in America. Right now, of course, the American military is starting to be, what's a polite word? I'm trying to think of a polite way to say it. They're being called out for turning into a bunch of wimps designed to fail. And of course, that's all sabotage, internal sabotage. It's all part of the takedown of America, unconventional warfare. So anyway, we'll see what happens. It's a little bit scary because the CCP is doing some really nasty stuff and they have very nasty agendas for the whole world. And I don't understand why anyone would ever want anything to do with them. It doesn't make sense to me. The only people who are interested are the people who are deeply, deeply in the pockets, mutually in the pockets in parts of Europe, or else you're one of the other thug regimes, in Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria, all the merchants of death. They're itching to hang out. They're all itching to let's form this big club and we'll take down America. We'll take them all down and then the whole world will be ruled by thugs. It sort of is already, but anyway. So the next thing I noticed was that Mr. Putin is very calmly announcing to whoever wants to listen. He's basically saying, I'm sorry, you guys don't seem to understand. This is just a special operation. Leave us alone. Back off NATO, back off America and all that. I just want to reconstitute Ukraine so we can get the Crimea and Sevastopol and our ports and everything again and save our Russian people from all these Ukrainian Nazis. Okay? So there's all sorts of stories going around oh yeah, that's just what he's saying. Because if you do not resist Mr. P, then he's going to try and take over, what used to be Russia and reclaim it as Russia. He wants to reconstitute the old Russia. In other words, all the Baltics, Finland, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary. He wants it all the way down to the Mediterranean. So anyway, in that gesture, he's decided, okay, well, I'm just going to put a load of nukes all around the border with the other NATO states, if you really want to play that game. So, of course, it's tit for tat. So now all the Baltics and the NATO states are going what are we going to do? So they're all gearing up for war, all part of the big war machine. Anyway, I'm going to resolve all of this stuff. I just got a few more points I wanted to share, and then we can get back to life, okay? Remember something like COV number 19? COV ID 19, 4 years ago, whenever it was, January 2020. And, since then there have been 4 iterations and the little needle injections that go with it. And we now have evidence, full-blown evidence that the whole thing was orchestrated and scammed. In other words, it's not naturally occurring. The whole thing was man-made. It's a form of, again, alternative warfare. A bunch of perverts and elites are trying to basically obliterate humanity and depopulate the planet. That's what they want to do. And they've got their different ways to do it. They just want to make it seem like, oh, it's just people catching bugs. What can we do? You know, if they really wanted to do it, they would just literally just poison everybody, poison, and shoot people and whatever. I mean, why beat about why pretend you don't want to do what you want to do? Why pretend you don't want to do evil when you want to do evil? You might as well just do it. You know, that's what I don't understand about them. The elites are ultimately hollow, and the only joy they have is from slaughter, murder, death, and self-appeasement through the perpetual lust for power, money, and control. And what really turns them on is a bunch of very nasty perversions that often translate to little kids and being used for nasty little games, and plus murder on a mass scale. Anyway, you've already heard about disease number X, and that's kind of like nobody took it very seriously. And so they're already moving on to the bird flu. You know, they're trying to make it, I just see it as like an orchestrated shenanigans to try and scare people. A lot of it's organized by the WEF, the UN, the WHO, the CDC, and all that. But it involves enormous amounts of money. And that's how I'm going to segue to the next bit, on accountability. How come all these evil perverts and entities, unelected, get to do all this evil stuff? We let them. We, the governed, allow this to happen. A lot of it being allowed to happen is because we, the people, got duped, and we, the people who decided to join the elites, knew what they were doing, and they willfully got on board. And so you ended up with, like in Washington, here in America, you've got this entity which is flooded with billions and billions and billions of dollars of campaign finance and, let's say, influence. And the idea is to influence the politicians to enact laws and policies that work for the people who are spending all the money through a legal form of bribery. So you've got big pharma, guilty. You've got big agro and food, guilty. You've got big tech and media, guilty. You've got big telecoms, big communications, big mainstream media, guilty. You've got big energy, guilty. They're all trying to perpetuate this machine where they personally benefit at the expense of we the people. And the perpetrators do it by basically bribing the politicians to act favorably in DC, in Congress, to get the agendas passed that they want. And at the very, 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 very top end of it, of course, we have some famous names like Grandpa Joe and his son Hunter. We've got Alejandro Mayorkas. We've got Merrick Garland. We've got Anthony Fauci. And that's just a handful of people who are all on board with this globalized elite agenda of world domination, one world government. In America, it's the uniparty. In other words, there's no Republicans, there's no Democrats. It's an illusion. It's theater, because it all works as one harmonious machine, and that's their job. But it's falling apart because we the people, some of us have looked beyond the veil, figured out what's going on, because we could smell something very, very putrid, very, very putrid. You can't deny it. You can't hide it anymore. So there is momentum to try and stop this evil. If you take it further and further, you've got, issues with climate, electric vehicles, wind, solar, all these things that are pushing. It's about money, 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 power, money, and control, right? And then you keep tracking it. You follow everything. It's sort of like a certain trail. Somebody educated me a while back. Is that you can track it all back to the Department of Defense. I kept thinking, well, I don't understand that, but actually, it's actually pretty obvious because that's another word for the military-industrial complex. They are at the very, very top of the pile because the biggest money of all comes from war. So they need war. They need perpetual war. Slaughter this, slaughter that. Fund this side of the war, fund that side of the same war, keep it going. And it's the money laundering system that pumps all the taxpayer funds into the war machine and all the contractors that are part of the Department of Defense. So it's a racket. It's business. It's a racket. It's like a mafia. So once you understand like what's actually going on behind the veil, everything makes sense. It's just like, oh, of course, now I understand. Everything's exactly as it should be. Why is that so? How is it so? It's because it can't be any other way. Things are the way they are. Reality is what it is, including fraud, deception, betrayal, lies, theft, murder, blackmail, perversions, all of it. That's part of reality. So some people are waking up and understanding and then figuring out, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do about that? So I'm hoping this little video makes you think like, God, maybe there's something we could do. What's wrong with my opinions, my decisions, my perceptions? Am I out of whack? What would it be like to have sovereignty, integrity, freedom, honesty, compassion, free market capitalism in such a way that people can be people? I don't know. We'll see. It's all unfolding live in real time. Anyway, my battery's dying. So, in fact, it's just about to collapse. So we're going to wrap it up. Have a super evening, folks. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up. I hope you get something out of this. Take care.